The announcement of the Executive Committee's decision came just in time for the fund to go back to its normal agenda. In other words, the World Economic Outlook, which is published at the beginning of the annual meetings. This year, the fund has cut growth forecasts for both the world and global and large economies, including a 1% cut for the United States. As you can see, it's the largest, just ahead of Germany. And there's a warning of dangerous divergence in the global economy. There's a warning of the split between the advanced and the emerging. And the advanced economies are expected to regain pre-pandemic paths. Developings are still far behind. There will be a larger setback in living standards as a result of it. Each side also has their problems. The advanced economies' supply chain issues. For the emerging markets, it's vaccines. The IMF said countries need to be very, very vigilant on the question of inflation. Gita Gopinath is the IMF's chief economist. She joins me from Washington. We will come to the issue of the WEO. I just want to follow through on something that you said earlier today. You said on this question of, because obviously everybody is now looking at the economics, the data, the analysis as a result of the issues at the World Bank. You said we have a robust system in place at the IMF in terms of making sure the credibility and integrity of our data and forecasts. So will you be having any investigations? Will you be having any analysis? Will you be rethinking anything to see how you could do better, bearing in mind what happened at the World Bank?
Hello, Richard. Data integrity is of utmost importance to us at the IMF. It is our bread and butter and what we put out in terms of data and forecasts. And we have a system in place that provides a lot of checks and balances in this process. We have multiple economists in multiple departments who pay attention to our numbers and our reports. We have a very solid trail of comments on who suggests what and when. And we also have the Independent Evaluation Office that frequently reviews our work. So we have many mechanisms in place. Now, of course, given how important data integrity is, we will continue to strive to making these processes even more robust. But I just want to highlight again, remind everybody, the data issue was never an IMF issue. Right. It was about the World Bank's Doing Business report.
Talking of this morning's WEO, well, I mean, the downgrade is one thing, but your warning about inflation, for economies to be very, very careful, this is as close as I will hear you say before you say we're in trouble.
Richard, our projections, and that's what's in this report, has inflation coming back to normal ranges for the advanced economy group and for emerging and developing economies by the middle of next year. So our baseline remains that we expect several of these forces to be transitory. That said, I think compared to a few months ago, it is important to be more vigilant for the following reason, that we have a pandemic that's lasting longer, right. And we have supply side disruptions that are lasting longer. And this is such a unique recovery that we have to be absolutely watchful of all the developments right. on the inflation front.
On the basis that that one is in trouble with inflation, by the time you realise it, it's too late to do anything about it more often than not, to forestall it. Do you think that major economies, particularly the United States, arguably the UK, possibly the EU, do you think they should be taking stronger action now?
I think central banks have to look at their country-specific circumstances to see how strong the recovery has been overall in their economies, in the labor markets, and what kinds of inflation pressures are you seeing. If, as we have seen recently, a lot of it has been driven by headline inflation and much less by core inflation and by services sector inflation, then we will expect some of these pressures to die down over time. So you have to remember, as the central bank, there's little you can do about rising commodity prices and this current spike in energy prices that you have seen. It's important to watch out for whether that feeds into core inflation, into more general wage and price setting processes. And so far, what we have seen points to the fact that all of that remains well behaved, and therefore we stick to our projection of inflation returning to more normal levels next year. But again, there is a high level of uncertainty.
Now, if we look at this divergence of economies, the problem here, Gita, is that you and I and others, and we've all been talking about it throughout the entire pandemic, and what appears to be happening is the self-fulfilling prophecy. Everybody said the divergence would get worse, that the inequality would grow, and that's exactly what is happening. Is it too late to forestall it?
Indeed, the other thing we all said was that we're all in this together, and the pandemic is not over anywhere until it's over everywhere. I believe what we have seen in the last 3 months is precisely a consequence of that. The Delta variant came out of a country with low levels of vaccination rates, and we have a downgrade for the global outlook. We have supply chain disruptions, and we have inflation risks. So we are all in this together. We have the ability to make a last push before the end of this calendar year to get 40% vaccinated in every country, but that will require countries to deliver on their dose donation pledges, which they have not done in adequate numbers. And second, for surplus countries to kind of step out of the queue so that you can have deliveries to COVAX and to the African Union's AVAT to happen in these next couple of months.
Gita, I'm grateful for your time today. Thank you, Anne.